Welcome back. Tonight we are traveling to Nebraska. Not the Nebraska of highways, tractors, and modern towns. Not the Nebraska that appears on maps today. Instead, we are journeying back to the year 1880, a place of wide open prairie, a place where the horizon seemed to stretch forever, a place where ordinary families worked hard to build lives on one of the newest frontiers in America. Before we begin, if you enjoy peaceful history stories like this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to continue bringing you more relaxing journeys through the past. For the next few hours, we will leave the modern world behind. We will walk dirt roads, listen to prairie winds, visit farms, schoolhouses, small towns, and family homes. We will experience life not through famous people or major events, but through the eyes of ordinary men, women, and children who called Nebraska home. So settle in comfortably. Allow your breathing to slow. Let the concerns of the day drift gently away. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to accomplish. For now, there is only the story. And our story begins at sunrise. Imagine standing on the Nebraska prairie in the summer of 1880. The world is quiet, very quiet. The sky above is enormous, far larger than most people living in cities today ever experience. The land stretches outward in every direction, miles upon miles of grass, rolling gently beneath the fading darkness of night. There are no highways, no power lines, no distant glow from city lights, only prairie, sky, and silence. Far to the east, the first hints of dawn begin appearing. A pale band of silver touches the horizon. The stars above remain visible for a little while longer, but their brightness is beginning to fade. The night is ending. A new day is beginning. A cool breeze moves across the grasslands. The prairie responds like an ocean. Waves of grass ripple gently beneath the morning wind. The sight is mesmerizing. Even today, people sometimes describe the Great Plains as resembling a sea. Standing here in 1880, it is easy to understand why. The landscape seems endless, and for many settlers arriving in Nebraska, that endlessness inspired both excitement and uncertainty. Some found the openness beautiful, others found it intimidating. Many experienced both feelings at the same time. Imagine arriving here for the first time, perhaps after traveling hundreds of miles by wagon, perhaps after arriving by train from the eastern United States or from Europe. You step down and look across the prairie. The land seems larger than anything you have ever seen. No mountains block the horizon. No forests limit your view. The sky dominates everything. And somewhere out there, you hope to build a new life. By 1880, Nebraska was changing rapidly. Only a few decades earlier, much of the region remained sparsely settled by newcomers. Now farms were appearing, towns were growing, railroads crossed the state. Families arrived every year seeking opportunity. Yet despite that growth, Nebraska still felt very much like a frontier. Many communities remained small. Many farms stood far apart from one another. The land still possessed a sense of vastness and possibility. As the sun begins climbing higher above the horizon, the colors of the prairie slowly emerge. Golden grasses, green fields, wildflowers scattered across the landscape. The beauty feels subtle, not dramatic like mountains or oceans, but quiet, peaceful, enduring. A meadowlark begins singing somewhere nearby. Its song carries across the open land. Soon another bird answers, then another. The prairie is waking up. The animals know morning has arrived, and so do the people. Imagine a farmhouse standing alone on the prairie. Smoke has not yet begun rising from the chimney. The family inside is still asleep, but not for much longer. In 1880, Nebraska days often began early, very early, especially during planting and harvest seasons. There was work to be done, animals to feed, fields to tend, repairs to make. The farm demanded attention, and the farm did not wait. Yet before the work begins, there is this moment, this peaceful moment between night and day, a moment many settlers likely appreciated. The air is cool, the world is quiet. The possibilities of the new day remain untouched. Imagine stepping outside just before sunrise. The grass feels damp with morning dew. The breeze carries the scent of earth and prairie plants. The eastern sky grows brighter every minute, and then finally the sun appears. A brilliant golden edge rises above the horizon. Light spills across the land. The prairie glows. Long shadows stretch westward. The transformation feels almost magical. For thousands of years, people have watched sunrises, yet each one feels unique, especially on the Great Plains. Here, there is nothing to block the view. The sunrise belongs entirely to the sky. As the sunlight spreads across Nebraska, details become clearer. A distant windmill turns slowly. A small herd of cattle grazes near a creek. Fields of corn sway gently in the breeze. A dirt road cuts across the landscape toward a nearby town. The frontier is coming to life. Imagine a farmer standing outside his home and looking across his land. Perhaps he arrived only a few years ago. Perhaps he built the house himself. Perhaps he remembers when this entire area was untouched prairie. Now there are fields, buildings, fences, evidence of years of effort. The sight brings satisfaction. Life has not been easy. Frontier life rarely is. But progress is visible. And visible progress gives people hope. Hope was one of the most valuable things a Nebraska settler could possess. Hope that the crops would grow. Hope that the weather would cooperate. Hope that children would have opportunities. Hope that the future would be better than the past. Those hopes filled countless homes across Nebraska in 1880. As the morning continues unfolding, the prairie becomes brighter. The birds grow more active. The wind strengthens slightly, and across the countryside, families begin waking for another day. The work of the frontier is about to begin. Soon kitchens will fill with activity. Barn doors will open. Horses will be harnessed. Children will help with chores. The quiet stillness of dawn will give way to the rhythm of daily life. But for now, let us remain here for a few moments longer, standing beneath the enormous Nebraska sky, watching the sunrise spread across the prairie, listening to the wind move through the grass, feeling the cool air of a summer morning in 1880, because this is where our journey begins, not with famous battles, not with politicians, not with grand events, but with the ordinary people waking up on the Great Plains, preparing for another day, building lives, building communities, and helping shape the future of Nebraska one sunrise at a time. The day is beginning. The prairie is awake. And our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska has only just begun. The sun has risen above the Nebraska prairie. Golden light spreads across the grasslands. The cool air of dawn still lingers, but the day is beginning to wake around us. Birds move through the sky. The wind stirs the tall prairie grass, and across the countryside, farmhouses stand quietly beneath the growing light of morning. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we leave the open prairie behind for a while and step inside one of those homes, a simple farmhouse, a place where an ordinary family begins another day. Imagine a house standing on a piece of Nebraska farmland. Perhaps it is built of wood. Perhaps it is a sod house constructed from blocks of prairie earth. In either case, the home is practical rather than luxurious. Every board, Every nail, every piece of furniture has value. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is taken for granted. The family living here worked hard to create this home, and now as morning arrives, the household begins to stir. The first person awake is often one of the parents, sometimes both. The day ahead is full of responsibilities. On a farm, there is always work waiting. Animals must be fed, water must be carried, meals must be prepared, fields must be tended. The work begins early because there is simply too much to accomplish otherwise. Imagine a mother rising quietly before the rest of the family. The house is still dark. The morning air feels cool. She moves carefully so as not to wake the children. A fire must be started. Without electricity, without modern appliances, nearly every task requires effort. The stove becomes the center of activity. Wood is added. The fire slowly comes to life. Soon warmth begins spreading through the room. The smell of wood smoke fills the air. It is a familiar smell, a comforting smell, a smell associated with home. Outside, the first rays of sunlight reach the fields. Inside, the farmhouse gradually awakens. Imagine the father stepping outside for a moment before breakfast. The world feels fresh. The grass is covered with dew. The sky stretches endlessly overhead. He pauses for a moment and surveys the farm, the fields, the fences, the barn, the livestock. The work ahead is already visible. Yet there is satisfaction in seeing what has been built. Many settlers arrived in Nebraska with very little. A few possessions, a few tools, a dream of something better. Everything around them now represents years of effort. As our journey continues through this peaceful morning, let us step inside the home once more. The children are beginning to wake. Perhaps they sleep in a shared room. Perhaps several siblings sleep in the same bed. Frontier homes often required families to use space efficiently. Luxury was rare. Practicality mattered far more. Imagine a young boy rubbing sleep from his eyes and hearing the sounds of morning activity, the crackle of the stove, the quiet voices of his parents, the familiar rhythm of another day beginning. He knows there will be chores ahead. Most children on Nebraska farms contributed to the household in some way, not because anyone wished to burden them, but because farms depended upon cooperation. Everyone helped. Everyone had responsibilities. A daughter may help prepare food. A son may assist with livestock. Older children often help younger siblings. The family functions as a team, and on the frontier, strong teamwork can make an enormous difference. As sunlight fills the farmhouse, the room becomes brighter. Simple furniture comes into view, a sturdy table, a few chairs, shelves holding household items, perhaps a family Bible, perhaps treasured photographs brought from another state or another country. Many settlers carried keepsakes with them when they moved west, small reminders of people and places left behind. Imagine looking at one of those photographs. Perhaps it shows grandparents living far away. Perhaps relatives still remain in Germany, Sweden, Ireland, or another homeland. Nebraska attracted settlers from many different backgrounds, and many families maintain strong connections to their heritage, even while building new lives on the prairie. As the morning progresses, sounds begin emerging from outside. A rooster crows, a horse moves within the barn, cattle call from a nearby pasture. The farm is waking. Animals play an essential role in daily life. Horses provide transportation and labor. Cows provide milk. Chickens provide eggs. Each animal contributes something important to the household. Imagine stepping outside and walking toward the barn. The morning sun casts long shadows across the ground. The air smells of grass, earth, and fresh hay. The sounds of animals create a steady background rhythm. For many Nebraska families, these sounds were among the first they heard every morning. They became part of daily life, as familiar as the ticking of a clock. As we continue our journey through the farmhouse morning, another detail becomes apparent: water. Today, obtaining water is usually effortless. In 1880 Nebraska, it required work. Imagine carrying a bucket toward a well. The task is routine. Perhaps it has been performed hundreds of times before, yet it remains essential. Water is needed for cooking, cleaning, drinking, laundry, animals. Nearly every activity depends upon it. Many everyday tasks that modern people accomplish instantly required time and effort on the frontier. This reality shaped daily life. It encouraged planning, patience, resourcefulness. As the family gathers inside once more, breakfast preparations continue. The meal itself will come shortly. But before we reach the breakfast table, let us pause for a moment and appreciate the atmosphere of the farmhouse. The warmth of the stove, the smell of fresh food being prepared, the sunlight streaming through the windows, the quiet conversations between family members, the sense of purpose that fills the room. Life on the prairie could be difficult. There were storms, droughts, isolation, hard work. Yet there was also comfort. Comfort found in family. Comfort found in routine. Comfort found in knowing that another day had begun. Outside, the Nebraska prairie stretches toward the horizon. The fields wait patiently. The livestock wait to be tended. The chores wait to be completed. Soon the family will step fully into the work of the day. But for now, the house remains filled with the calm energy of morning. A new day in 1880 Nebraska has begun. The sun continues rising higher into the sky. The prairie grows brighter. And inside this farmhouse, an ordinary family prepares for another day of frontier life. Their story is simple, yet it is exactly these ordinary stories that help us understand the past. One family, one morning, one farmhouse beneath the endless Nebraska sky. And our journey is only beginning. The Nebraska morning is fully awake now. The sun has climbed above the horizon. Golden light stretches across the prairie. The cool air of dawn is slowly giving way to the warmth of the day. Birds continue singing outside. The wind moves gently through the tall grass. And inside the farmhouse, breakfast is nearly ready. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we gather around the family table. It may seem like a simple moment, an ordinary breakfast on an ordinary day. But sometimes the simplest moments tell us the most about how people lived. Imagine stepping into the farmhouse kitchen. The room feels warm from the wood-burning stove. Sunlight streams through the windows. The smell of fresh food fills the air. A cast-iron skillet rests atop the stove. Coffee is brewing. Someone is setting plates on the table. The day has not truly begun until breakfast is served. For frontier families, breakfast was important, very important. The work ahead would be demanding. Fields needed attention, livestock needed care, repairs needed completing. The family required energy for the long hours ahead. A good breakfast helped provide it. Imagine the table itself, simple and sturdy, perhaps built by hand. The wood shows signs of years of use, small scratches, worn edges, evidence of countless meals shared together. The table is more than furniture. It is the center of family life. Stories are told here. Plans are made here. News is discussed here. And every day begins and ends around it. As the family gathers, the room becomes livelier. Parents take their seats, children settle into chairs. The youngest may still seem sleepy. The oldest children are already thinking about chores waiting outside. The atmosphere feels familiar, comfortable. This routine has happened hundreds of times before, And it will happen hundreds of times again. Imagine the breakfast itself. Perhaps there are biscuits fresh from the oven. Perhaps eggs collected that very morning. Maybe salt pork or bacon. Perhaps porridge, butter churned at home, homemade jam, fresh milk. The exact meal varies from family to family. But one thing remains consistent. Most of the food comes directly from the farm itself. Frontier families often produce much of what they consumed. Gardens supplied vegetables. Chickens provided eggs. Cows provided milk and butter. Families preserved food carefully so it would last through the seasons. Nothing was wasted if it could be helped. Every harvest mattered. Every meal reflected the work that had gone into producing it. As our journey continues through the peaceful Nebraska morning, imagine a young boy reaching eagerly for another biscuit. The workday ahead seems far away. For now, breakfast is the most important thing in the world. His parents smile. Perhaps they remind him to slow down. Some things never change. Across generations and centuries, families have shared similar moments around breakfast tables. The details may differ, but the human experience remains surprisingly familiar. As sunlight brightens the room, conversation begins. Perhaps the father discusses the weather. Weather is always an important topic on the prairie. A farmer's success depends heavily upon it. Rainfall, wind, temperature, storms. Every change in the sky can influence life on the farm. Imagine him glancing through the window toward the fields. The corn appears healthy. The sky is clear. It looks like a good day for work. That simple observation brings quiet satisfaction. Out on the Great Plains, favorable weather is never taken for granted. Meanwhile, the children talk about their own plans. Perhaps one child is excited about visiting town later in the week. Another wonders about school. A younger sibling asks questions about nearly everything. The conversation flows naturally, unhurried, comfortable. These small conversations help hold families together. And on isolated farms, family bonds are especially important. As we continue sitting at the breakfast table, let us think about time. Modern people often rush through breakfast, a quick meal before work or school. But in 1880 Nebraska, breakfast often felt more deliberate. The family gathered together. The meal marked the transition between night and the day's labor. For a short while, everyone shared the same space, the same food, the same plans for the hours ahead. Imagine looking around the room. The stove crackles softly. Sunlight falls across the wooden floor. The smell of coffee lingers in the air. Outside, horses wait in the barn. Fields stretch toward the horizon. But for now, the family remains together, enjoying a brief moment of calm before the work begins. As the meal continues, another detail becomes apparent. The frontier encouraged self-reliance. Many of the items in the room were either built, repaired, or maintained by the family. The furniture, the tools, the clothing. People learned practical skills because they needed them. If something broke, replacing it was not always easy. Repairs often became part of daily life. This resourcefulness shaped frontier culture. People learned to solve problems, adapt, make use of what they had. Those skills helped many families succeed on the prairie. As the last bites of breakfast are eaten, the atmosphere begins to change. The workday is calling. Chairs slide across the floor. Plates are gathered. The table is cleared. Children prepare for chores. Adults review plans for the day. The peaceful breakfast hour is ending. Yet, it has served its purpose. The family is nourished. The day has begun, and everyone knows what must be done next. Imagine stepping outside with the family. The morning sun is brighter now. The prairie stretches endlessly beneath the blue sky. The wind carries the scent of grass and earth. The barn stands nearby. The fields await. The sounds of frontier life grow stronger with every passing minute. A horse nickers softly. Chickens scratch in the dirt. A wagon wheel creaks somewhere in the distance. The farm is fully awake, and so are the people who call it home. For a brief time, we shared breakfast with them. We sat at their table, listened to their conversations, experienced the simple comforts that helped make frontier life feel like home. Now the work of the day is about to begin. The prairie waits patiently. The fields need tending. The animals need care. And beyond the farm, the wider world of 1880 Nebraska continues its steady rhythm beneath the endless Great Plains sky. Our journey continues onward, one ordinary moment at a time. The breakfast dishes have been cleared away. The farmhouse is no longer quiet. The peaceful stillness of dawn has given way to the steady rhythm of work. Outside, the Nebraska prairie stretches beneath a bright morning sky. The sun continues climbing higher. A warm breeze moves through the grass, and across the countryside, thousands of farm families are beginning the most important part of their day, the work. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we step out of the farmhouse and into the fields. Because to understand Nebraska in 1880, we must understand farming. The land shaped nearly everything: the seasons, the economy, the routines of daily life. For many settlers, farming was not simply a job. It was the reason they came to Nebraska in the first place. Imagine standing beside a farmer as he looks across his fields on a summer morning. Rows of corn stretch toward the horizon. The plants sway gently in the breeze. The sight brings a sense of pride. Every row represents effort. Every acre represents months of work. Nothing about farming on the Great Plains is easy, yet the rewards can be substantial. A successful harvest means food on the table, money for supplies, hope for the future. As the farmer begins his day, his first task may involve checking the fields. This simple act reveals a great deal about life on the prairie. Farming requires observation, constant observation. The condition of the soil, the amount of rainfall, signs of insects, the health of the crops. A farmer learns to notice small details, details that others might overlook. Imagine walking slowly between rows of corn. The morning sun shines overhead. The earth beneath your boots feels firm. You stop occasionally to inspect a plant. Everything looks healthy. The leaves are green. The stalks are strong. The crop appears promising. Such moments bring quiet satisfaction, but they also bring caution. A farmer knows that conditions can change quickly. A storm, a drought, an early frost. The prairie offers many opportunities, but it also demands respect. As our journey continues through the growing warmth of the morning, imagine looking beyond the fields. The landscape feels enormous. The sky dominates everything. For settlers arriving from heavily forested regions or crowded cities, the Great Plains often felt unlike any place they had ever seen. The openness could be startling. There were few trees, few natural landmarks, only grasslands stretching outward in every direction. Yet over time, many settlers came to love the prairie, its simplicity, its beauty, its sense of freedom. The land became home. As the workday progresses, another important part of farm life comes into view: horses. Before tractors transformed agriculture, horses provided much of the power needed on farms. Imagine a team of horses standing patiently near a field. Strong, reliable, essential. They pull plows, haul wagons, transport supplies. Without them, many tasks would require far more labor. The relationship between farmers and their horses often became remarkably close. The animals were partners in the daily work of the farm. And like all valuable partners, they required care and attention. Imagine brushing a horse after a long morning of work. The animal stands calmly. The routine feels familiar. These small acts of care help maintain trust between human and animal. And trust matters on the frontier. As the sun climbs higher, the pace of work continues. Fields must be cultivated, weeds must be removed, repairs must be made. There is always something that needs attention. Frontier farming is not a profession that allows much idleness. The seasons move quickly. Opportunities can be brief. A farmer learns to make good use of time. Imagine repairing a fence along the edge of a field. The task may seem simple, yet fences are important. They protect crops, guide livestock, define property boundaries. A damaged fence can quickly become a problem, so the repair is completed today rather than postponed. This practical approach appears throughout frontier life. Problems are addressed when possible. Waiting rarely improves them. As our journey moves across the Nebraska prairie, another reality becomes clear. Farming is rarely a solitary effort. Families work together. Neighbors help one another. Children contribute according to their abilities. Imagine several family members working side by side. One carries tools. Another tends livestock. A third helps in the garden. Everyone participates. The success of the farm depends upon cooperation. And cooperation becomes one of the defining features of prairie life. Many settlers quickly learned that neighbors were among their most valuable resources. A nearby family could provide assistance during harvest, help repair a building, offer advice during difficult times. The frontier encouraged independence, but it also encouraged community. As midday approaches, the sun grows stronger, the temperature rises, the shade of a tree becomes increasingly welcome. Imagine pausing for a short break. The work has been steady all morning. A cool drink of water feels refreshing. The breeze provides relief from the heat. For a few moments, the farm becomes quiet again. These brief pauses are important. They allow people to rest, reflect, and appreciate the landscape around them. Looking across the prairie, it becomes easier to understand why so many settlers remained. Life was challenging, yet there was beauty here. Beauty in the open sky, beauty in the fields, beauty in watching something grow because of your own effort. As the afternoon waits ahead, the work continues. The horses stand ready. The crops continue growing beneath the sun. The farm remains alive with activity. And throughout Nebraska, countless families are engaged in similar tasks. Planting, repairing, building, caring, creating lives on the Great Plains one day at a time. The morning has passed. The prairie is warm beneath the summer sun, and our journey through life in 1880, Nebraska continues onward through the fields, where hard work and hope grow side by side beneath the endless sky. The Nebraska sun hangs high above the prairie. The morning's work continues across the fields. Farmers move steadily through rows of crops. Horses pull wagons along dusty roads. A warm breeze ripples through the grasslands, and beneath the vast summer sky, families continue building their lives on the Great Plains. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we leave the fields behind for a while and turn our attention to something every settler needed, a home, not simply a shelter from rain and wind, but a place of comfort, a place of safety, a place where memories could be made. For many families arriving in Nebraska, creating a home was among their first and most important challenges. Imagine arriving on a piece of prairie land for the very first time. The landscape stretches endlessly around you. The grass waves gently in the wind. The sky seems enormous. Yet there is one thing missing: a house. There are no ready-made homes waiting, no neighborhoods, no streets lined with buildings, only open land. If a family wanted a home, they often had to build it themselves. Imagine standing beside a wagon loaded with possessions, tools, blankets, cooking supplies, a few treasured keepsakes. Everything the family owns has traveled with them. Now comes the difficult part, turning empty prairie into a place called home. The first homes were often simple, practical rather than elegant. The goal was protection from the elements, protection from summer heat, protection from winter cold, protection from wind and storms. Comfort could come later. Survival came first. As our journey continues, imagine one of the most famous homes of the Great Plains, the sod house. Today the idea may seem unusual, building a house from earth and grass. Yet for many Nebraska settlers, sod houses made perfect sense. Trees were not always available. Lumber could be expensive. The prairie itself, however, provided building material. Imagine cutting thick sections of prairie sod. Each block contains soil held together by dense roots. The pieces are stacked like bricks. One row at a time, slowly, walls begin to rise. A doorway is added, windows are installed. Eventually, a roof completes the structure. What began as open prairie becomes a home. The process requires effort, patience, determination. But those qualities were common among frontier settlers. Imagine stepping inside a finished sod house. The room feels surprisingly cool. The thick walls help regulate temperature. The air is calm. Sunlight enters through small windows. The furnishings are simple, yet the space feels welcoming. Because a home is more than its construction materials. A home becomes meaningful because of the people living within it. As the prairie breeze continues moving outside, imagine a family settling into their new house for the first time. Perhaps they unpack a few cherished belongings, a family Bible, photographs, a handmade quilt, small objects carrying memories from another place. These items help transform a structure into a home. Even on the frontier, people carried pieces of their past with them. As settlements matured, some families eventually built larger wooden homes. Imagine a farmhouse standing beside fields of corn and wheat. The house is modest but sturdy. A front porch provides shade. Windows overlook the prairie. A chimney rises above the roof. The home reflects years of effort. Perhaps the family started with a smaller dwelling, then expanded as circumstances improved. Growth often happened gradually, one room added at a time, one improvement at a time. The frontier rewarded patience. As our journey continues through the warm Nebraska afternoon, let us think about another important structure, the barn. For many farm families, the barn was nearly as important as the house itself. Imagine a large wooden barn standing near the farmhouse. Inside are horses, tools, feed, equipment essential to daily life. The barn protects valuable resources from weather and theft. Its construction represents a significant investment of labor. Many neighbors might help raise a barn. Imagine such a gathering. Families arrive from nearby farms. Tools are unloaded. Plans are discussed. Everyone works together. The framework rises steadily into the sky. By the end of the day, a new building stands where there had been none before. These events were known as barn raisings. They combined hard work with community spirit. The frontier often required cooperation. People helped one another because they understood that someday they might need help themselves. As sunlight shines across the prairie, another essential feature of homestead life comes into view. The well. Water is life. Without reliable access to water, a farm cannot thrive. Imagine a settler standing beside a newly completed well. The first bucket rises from below. Clear water glistens in the sunlight. The moment feels important, perhaps even emotional. A dependable water source means stability, it means opportunity, it means the farm can grow. Throughout Nebraska, wells became central features of frontier life. Everyday routines revolved around them. Water for cooking, water for cleaning, water for livestock, water for survival. As the afternoon continues, imagine walking through a typical farmyard. Chickens move about searching for food. A wagon rests near the barn. Fresh laundry hangs from a clothesline, swaying gently in the breeze. Children play nearby while completing chores. The house stands proudly against the backdrop of endless prairie. The scene feels peaceful, yet every detail represents effort. The house was built. The well was dug. The fence was constructed. The barn was raised. Nothing appeared automatically. Everything required labor. That reality shaped the character of frontier communities. People learned the value of persistence, the value of planning, the value of helping one another. As our journey continues, imagine evening approaching. The day's work is beginning to slow. Golden sunlight bathes the prairie. Long shadows stretch across the farmyard. The house glows warmly in the fading light. A family gathers on the porch for a few quiet moments before supper. Perhaps they look across the fields. Perhaps they discuss tomorrow's tasks. Perhaps they simply enjoy the view. And what a view it is. Miles of prairie, an enormous sky, the satisfaction of seeing a home standing where once there had been only grassland. For many settlers, that site represented success, not wealth, not luxury, but something more important, a place to belong, a place to build a future, a place to raise a family, a home. The prairie wind continues moving through the grass. The sun slowly begins its descent toward the western horizon. And across Nebraska, thousands of families rest within homes they built through determination and hard work. Some houses are made of sod, some are made of wood, some are large, some are small. Yet each one tells a story of hope, a story of effort, a story of ordinary people creating lives on the Great Plains. And as the afternoon drifts onward beneath the endless Nebraska sky, our journey continues, one homestead at a time. The afternoon sunlight spreads gently across the Nebraska prairie. The fields shimmer beneath the warm summer sky. A breeze moves through the tall grass. The farmhouse stands quietly beside the barn, surrounded by gardens, fences, and the signs of daily life. The work of the day continues. Across Nebraska in 1880, thousands of families are busy with countless tasks. The crops need tending, the livestock need care, repairs need completing, meals need preparing. And at the center of much of this activity are the women of the prairie. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880, Nebraska continues, we step into their world, a world of hard work, responsibility, resourcefulness, and quiet strength. Imagine a farmhouse kitchen on a summer afternoon. Sunlight streams through the windows. The wood stove radiates warmth. The smell of bread fills the room. A woman moves steadily from one task to another. There is always something that needs attention, always another responsibility waiting. Life on the frontier demanded much from everyone, but women often carried a remarkable range of duties: cooking, cleaning, laundry, gardening, preserving food, caring for children, helping with livestock, managing the household. The list seemed endless, and yet these tasks formed the foundation of daily life. Imagine beginning the day before sunrise. The stove must be lit, breakfast must be prepared, children must be helped, water must be carried. Before many people have even started their day, hours of work have already been completed. The routine repeats itself day after day, season after season, year after year. And still the work continues. As our journey moves through the warm afternoon, imagine stepping outside behind the farmhouse. A garden grows nearby. Rows of vegetables stretch beneath the sun: beans, potatoes, onions, carrots, cabbage, perhaps tomatoes, if conditions allow. The garden plays an important role in the family's survival. Fresh vegetables supplement meals. Excess produce can be preserved for winter. The garden represents both food and security. Imagine kneeling among the rows, carefully removing weeds. The work is repetitive, yet satisfying. Healthy plants promise future harvests, and future harvests provide peace of mind. Many frontier families thought months ahead, especially when preparing for Nebraska winters. Food preservation becomes one of the most important skills on the prairie. Imagine shelves lined with jars, fruit preserved during summer, vegetables stored for colder months. Each jar represents preparation, effort invested now for benefits later. The frontier encouraged this kind of thinking. People learned to plan ahead because circumstances often demanded it. As the afternoon continues, another familiar task appears: laundry. Today, laundry often requires little more than pressing a button. In 1880 Nebraska, it required considerable effort. Imagine carrying buckets of water from the well, heating water on the stove, scrubbing clothing by hand, rinsing, wringing, hanging garments outside to dry. The process consumes hours, yet clean clothing remains important. The task must be completed. And so it is, week after week, year after year. The prairie wind helps. Freshly washed clothes sway gently on a clothesline. Sunlight brightens the fabric. The scene feels peaceful, but behind that peaceful image lies significant labor. Many frontier chores work this way. Tasks that appear simple often required time, skill, and determination. As our journey continues through the household, let us think about children. We have already met some of the young people growing up on Nebraska farms. Now imagine the daily responsibilities involved in raising them. A baby needs constant attention. A toddler requires supervision. Older children need guidance and instruction. Parents teach practical skills, manners, values, responsibility. Much of this education happens naturally through everyday life. Imagine a mother teaching a child how to knead bread. The lesson seems small, yet it passes knowledge from one generation to the next. Thousands of similar lessons occur throughout frontier life: cooking, sewing, gardening, household management. Practical skills help families succeed, and someone must teach them. As sunlight continues pouring across the prairie, another task comes into view: sewing. Imagine sitting beside a window where the light is strongest. A needle moves steadily through fabric. Perhaps a shirt needs repair. Perhaps a new garment is being created. Clothing is valuable. Replacing it can be expensive. As a result, many items are repaired repeatedly. Patches are common. Careful maintenance extends usefulness. Resourcefulness becomes a way of life. Nothing is discarded without good reason. The frontier teaches people to appreciate what they have. As the afternoon slowly moves forward, imagine a neighbor arriving at the farmhouse. Visits like these are often welcome. Many farms stand miles apart. Opportunities for social interaction may be limited. A friendly conversation becomes something to enjoy. The two women sit together for a while. Perhaps they discuss crops. Perhaps they exchange recipes. Perhaps they share news from nearby towns. The conversation flows easily. These moments matter. Community matters, even in places where homes are separated by great distances. People seek connection, friendship, support. The prairie can feel vast, but relationships help make it feel smaller. As our journey continues, another reality of frontier life becomes visible: loneliness. Many settlers left behind family and friends when moving west. The prairie offered opportunity, but it could also feel isolated. Letters became important. Imagine receiving a letter from relatives living hundreds of miles away, perhaps even across the ocean. The envelope carries news from another world. The moment feels special. The letter may be read several times, saved carefully, treasured. Simple things often become deeply meaningful on the frontier. As the day begins moving toward evening, the farmhouse grows busy once more. Supper preparations begin. Vegetables are gathered. Ingredients are prepared. The stove is used once again. Soon the family will gather around the table. The workday is not over, but its end is approaching. Imagine pausing for a moment and looking across the prairie. The sun hangs lower in the sky. Golden light spreads across the fields. The barn casts a long shadow. The house stands quietly nearby. Everything feels calm. And in that moment, it becomes easier to appreciate the contribution made by countless women across Nebraska. Their work often went unnoticed outside the family, yet it was essential. Homes depended upon it. Children depended upon it. Communities depended upon it. The frontier depended upon it. They cooked, planned, taught, preserved, repaired, managed, comforted, encouraged. And through these countless acts, they helped transform the prairie into a place where families could thrive. The wind continues moving gently through the grass. The evening sun paints the landscape with warm colors. And across Nebraska, women continue their daily work beneath the endless Great Plains sky. Their stories are quiet, yet they are among the most important stories of all. Because every farm, every town, every community we have visited throughout our journey rests upon the efforts of ordinary people performing extraordinary amounts of work. And as the afternoon drifts toward evening, our journey through life in 1880, Nebraska continues, carried forward by those everyday acts of care, responsibility, and resilience. The afternoon sun drifts slowly across the Nebraska sky. The fields glow beneath its warm light. A gentle breeze moves through the prairie grass. Farmhouses stand quietly across the countryside, surrounded by gardens, barns, livestock, and the steady rhythms of frontier life. Throughout our journey, we have spent time with farmers working in the fields. We have visited homes built from sod and wood. We have followed the daily responsibilities of the women who helped hold frontier families together. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we turn our attention to a different part of prairie life, the children. Because while adults spent much of their time building farms and communities, children experienced the frontier in their own unique way. A world filled with chores and responsibilities, certainly, but also curiosity, adventure, imagination, and discovery. Imagine waking up as a child on a Nebraska farm in the summer of 1880. The morning sunlight enters through the window. The sounds of livestock drift in from outside. The smell of breakfast fills the house. A new day has begun. And like everyone else on the farm, you have work to do. Childhood on the prairie was often different from childhood today. Many children began helping their families from an early age, not because life was harsh or joyless, but because farms depended upon cooperation. Every pair of hands mattered, even small ones. Imagine a young boy stepping outside shortly after breakfast. The air is fresh. The sky is brilliantly blue. His first task may be gathering eggs from the chicken coop, a simple responsibility, yet an important one. The eggs will help provide food for the family. The boy knows the routine well. He has performed it many times before. As he walks across the yard, chickens scatter around him. The morning feels peaceful, familiar, comforting. Now imagine a young girl helping in the garden. She carries a small bucket. Perhaps she helps pull weeds. Perhaps she gathers vegetables. Perhaps she waters young plants. The tasks vary depending upon the season. Yet through these everyday activities, children gradually learn the skills they will need later in life. The prairie becomes their classroom, and daily life becomes their teacher. As the afternoon sunshine spreads across the countryside, let us think about freedom. Because despite their responsibilities, many frontier children enjoyed a remarkable degree of freedom. The world around them was enormous. Fields, creeks, prairies, woodlots. The landscape invited exploration. Imagine finishing your chores and having a few hours to yourself. You step beyond the farmyard and into the open prairie. The grass sways around you. Butterflies drift through the air. Birds call from distant fence posts. Every direction seems full of possibility. For a child, the prairie can feel like an endless adventure. A shallow creek becomes an expedition. A cluster of trees becomes a fortress. A hillside becomes a mountain. Children have always possessed a special ability to transform ordinary places into extraordinary ones. The frontier offered countless opportunities for imagination. As our journey continues, imagine a group of children gathering near a creek. The water moves slowly between grassy banks. The summer sun reflects from its surface. The children skip stones, search for interesting rocks, watch dragonflies dart above the water. Hours pass almost unnoticed. There are no electronic devices, no television, no video games. Entertainment often comes directly from the natural world, and the natural world provides plenty to discover. As the breeze moves through the tall grass, another aspect of prairie childhood comes into focus. Distance. Many farm families lived miles apart. This meant children often had fewer playmates nearby than children in towns and cities. Friendships still formed, of course, but visiting friends might require a wagon ride or a horseback journey. As a result, siblings often became especially important companions. Imagine brothers and sisters spending long afternoons together, exploring, working, playing games, sharing adventures. Their bond grows stronger through shared experiences. Many frontier families remained close throughout their lives because they spent so much time together during childhood. As the afternoon continues, another important destination appears on the horizon: the schoolhouse. We will visit Nebraska schools in greater detail later in our journey. But even now, the school plays an important role in children's lives. For many young people, school provides an opportunity to learn, certainly, but it also provides a chance to see friends, exchange stories, and connect with a wider community. Imagine a child eagerly anticipating the next school day, not because lessons are easy, but because school offers variety, conversation, friendship. The schoolhouse becomes one of the social centers of frontier life. As our journey moves forward, let us think about toys. Many frontier children owned fewer toys than children today. Store-bought toys could be expensive, and stores were not always nearby. Yet children found ways to create entertainment. Imagine a homemade toy carved from wood, a rag doll carefully sewn by hand, a game invented on the spot using whatever materials happen to be available. Imagination often fills the gaps where possessions are limited, and frontier children had plenty of imagination. A stick might become a horse, a field might become an entire kingdom. The possibilities seem endless. As sunlight begins its slow journey toward the western horizon, chores return once again. The farm still requires attention. Animals need feeding. Water needs carrying. Tools need putting away. Children contribute wherever they can. The responsibilities may seem ordinary, yet through them, young people learn important lessons: responsibility, patience, perseverance, cooperation, values that will serve them throughout their lives. Imagine a father teaching his son how to repair a fence, or a mother teaching her daughter how to bake bread. The lessons extend beyond the task itself. The child learns not only what to do, but how to approach challenges, how to solve problems, how to contribute to a family and community. Much of frontier education happened this way, through observation, practice, and participation. As evening approaches, the prairie begins changing color. The sunlight grows softer. Long shadows stretch across the fields. Children return to the farmhouse after a day filled with both work and adventure. Perhaps they are tired, perhaps they are dusty, perhaps they are still talking excitedly about something they discovered near the creek. The details vary, but the feeling remains familiar, the satisfaction that comes from a day well spent. Imagine standing outside the farmhouse as the sun lowers toward the horizon. The prairie stretches endlessly before you. The sky seems larger than ever. Birds glide across the evening light. The wind moves gently through the grass. For a child growing up here, these sights become ordinary, yet they are also extraordinary. They shape memories that may last a lifetime. Many years later, long after childhood has passed, people often remember these moments: the smell of freshly cut hay, the sound of meadowlarks, the sight of a Nebraska sunset, the feeling of running through tall grass beneath an endless sky. Such memories become part of who they are. And so across the farms and small towns of 1880 Nebraska, childhood unfolds, a mixture of work and play, responsibility and freedom, learning and exploration. The prairie serves as both home and playground. The family serves as both support and teacher. And beneath the wide Great Plains sky, a generation grows up one season at a time. The sun continues sinking toward the horizon. The evening air grows cooler. And our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska moves onward, carried by the stories of the children who experienced the frontier through curious eyes and adventurous hearts. The afternoon is slowly giving way to evening across the Nebraska prairie. The sun hangs lower in the sky. Golden light spreads across fields of corn and wheat. The wind moves gently through the tall grass, carrying the sounds of birds and distant livestock. Farmhouses stand quietly beneath the vast sky. The day's work continues, but the pace has begun to soften. And tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we travel to one of the most important places in any frontier community, the schoolhouse. It may seem like a simple building, small, modest, unremarkable from a distance. Yet for many families on the Great Plains, the schoolhouse represented something extraordinary. Opportunity, knowledge, hope for the future. Imagine standing beside a one-room schoolhouse on a cool autumn morning. The building sits alone on the prairie. A flag flutters gently outside. A dirt road leads to the entrance. Nearby, horses wait patiently while children arrive for class. The schoolhouse is not large. It does not need to be. The surrounding community is small. Perhaps a few dozen students attend, perhaps fewer. Yet inside those walls, an entire world of learning unfolds. Imagine a child arriving just before class begins. The morning air feels crisp. Books are carried beneath one arm. Friends wave from across the yard. The school bell has not yet rung. There is still time for conversation, time for laughter, time to enjoy the brief moments before lessons begin. For many children living on isolated farms, school provides more than education. It provides connection, a chance to see friends, a chance to hear news, a chance to feel part of a larger community. As our journey continues, imagine stepping inside the schoolhouse. Sunlight streams through tall windows. Rows of wooden desks fill the room. A blackboard stands at the front. A potbelly stove waits nearby for colder months. The room feels simple, yet welcoming. The teacher stands near the front of the classroom, preparing for the day. Teaching on the frontier requires skill, patience, flexibility. Unlike modern classrooms, students of many ages learn together. A 6-year-old may sit only a few feet away from a teenager. Each student studies different subjects at different levels. The teacher must somehow guide them all. Imagine the school day beginning. The bell rings. Children find their seats. The room gradually becomes quiet. Outside, the prairie wind continues its endless journey across the grasslands. Inside, lessons begin. Perhaps the youngest students practice their letters, carefully tracing shapes onto paper. Meanwhile, older students work on arithmetic, fractions, multiplication, long division. At another desk, a teenager studies geography, learning about distant places that seem almost unimaginable from the Nebraska prairie. The classroom contains many worlds at once. As sunlight fills the room, imagine the sounds: pages turning, pencils scratching, students reading aloud, the teacher moving from desk to desk. The atmosphere feels focused, yet never hurried. Education in 1880 often moved at a different pace than it does today. There were fewer distractions, fewer interruptions. Learning unfolded steadily, one lesson at a time. As the morning continues, reading becomes an important part of the day. Imagine a student standing beside the teacher's desk. A book is held carefully in both hands. The child reads aloud while classmates listen. Perhaps the reading is smooth. Perhaps there are occasional mistakes. Either way, the exercise builds confidence. Knowledge grows gradually, just like crops in a field, just like communities on the frontier. Patience is required, and patience often produces remarkable results. As our journey continues through the school day, another lesson begins: history. The students learn about the past, important events, important people, the stories of earlier generations. Perhaps some of the children listen with fascination, perhaps others stare out the window and daydream about the prairie beyond. Children have always been children. Some things change very little across time. As midday approaches, the school bell rings once more. Recess. Immediately, the atmosphere changes. Students hurry outside. The prairie becomes a playground. Games begin. Friends gather in small groups. Laughter fills the air. Imagine a group of children running across the schoolyard. The grass crunches beneath their shoes. The sky stretches endlessly overhead. For a little while, lessons are forgotten. The joy of play takes center stage. These moments are important. Friendships are strengthened. Memories are created. And for many students, recess becomes one of the most anticipated parts of the day. As the afternoon lessons begin, the classroom settles once more. The teacher introduces penmanship. In an era before computers, clear handwriting matters greatly. Students carefully form letters on paper. Attention to detail is encouraged. Neatness is valued. Imagine rows of children concentrating intensely on each stroke of the pen. The room feels peaceful. The work requires focus. Yet there is satisfaction in seeing improvement, a skill mastered through practice. As the sunlight begins taking on the golden tones of late afternoon, geography lessons continue. Maps are studied, rivers are identified, states are located. The children learn about a nation that extends far beyond the prairie around them. For some students, these lessons inspire curiosity. What lies beyond Nebraska? What do distant cities look like? What might the future hold? Education opens doors, not only to knowledge, but to imagination. And imagination can travel farther than any railroad. As our journey moves toward the end of the school day, the atmosphere begins to relax. Assignments are completed, books are gathered, the teacher reviews lessons. The final bell approaches. Imagine looking around the classroom one last time, the wooden desks, the blackboard, the sunlight streaming through the windows, the familiar faces of classmates. For many children, this room becomes an important part of their lives, a place where they learn, grow, make friends, and prepare for the future. The final bell rings. Students step outside into the afternoon light. Some will walk home, others will ride horses. A few may travel by wagon. Soon the schoolyard empties. Silence returns. The building stands alone once more on the prairie, waiting patiently for another day. As the evening sun casts long shadows across the grasslands, it becomes clear that the one-room schoolhouse represents something larger than education alone. It represents belief in the future. Parents build schools because they believe tomorrow matters. Communities support teachers because they believe knowledge matters. Students attend because they hope opportunities will follow. The schoolhouse becomes a symbol of optimism, a symbol of growth, a symbol of possibility. And throughout Nebraska in 1880, these simple buildings helped shape a generation, one lesson at a time, one student at a time, one school day at a time. The prairie wind continues moving through the grass. The sunlight grows softer. The schoolhouse rests quietly beneath the enormous sky. And our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues onward, carried by the hopes and dreams of the children learning within its walls. The schoolhouse grows quiet as the last students make their way home. The prairie stretches peacefully beneath the late afternoon sun. Long shadows begin forming across the fields. The wind continues its steady journey through the grasslands. And throughout Nebraska, another part of daily life is preparing for the evening ahead. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we leave the farm behind for a while and travel into town. Not a large city, not a bustling center filled with crowded streets, but a small Nebraska town, the kind of community that served as the heart of frontier life, a place where neighbors met, goods were exchanged, news was shared, and the wider world felt just a little closer. Imagine approaching the town along a dirt road. The prairie stretches behind you. Ahead, a cluster of buildings comes into view. A few homes, several businesses, perhaps a church steeple rising above the rooftops, a water tower in the distance. The settlement is modest. Yet to the people who live nearby, it is an important place. Many farm families may only visit once every week or two, some perhaps less often. The trip takes time. Horses must be prepared, wagons loaded, the journey planned. But when town day arrives, it often becomes one of the highlights of the week. As we continue along the road, the sounds of the town gradually emerge. The creak of wagon wheels, the distant ring of a hammer striking metal, conversations drifting through open doorways, the occasional bark of a dog. The town is alive, not busy by modern standards, but active enough to feel welcoming. Imagine tying your horse outside the general store. This is often the first stop for many visitors. The store serves countless purposes. It is a place to purchase supplies, a place to exchange information, a place to meet neighbors. In many ways, it functions as the social center of the community. Imagine stepping through the door. The wooden floor creaks beneath your feet. Shelves line the walls. Barrels stand in corners. Sacks of flour are stacked neatly. Tools hang nearby. The store carries a little bit of everything: food, hardware, fabric, household supplies, items that may have traveled hundreds or even thousands of miles before reaching Nebraska. The sight can be fascinating, especially for children. Imagine a young boy entering the store with his parents. His eyes immediately begin exploring every shelf, every barrel, every unfamiliar object. To him, the store feels almost magical, a place full of possibilities. As the afternoon sunlight filters through the windows, customers greet one another. News travels quickly here. Someone discusses the weather. Another talks about crop conditions. A traveler shares stories from a neighboring town. Information moves from person to person. In an age before telephones were common, conversations remain one of the most important ways communities stay informed. The general store helps make that possible. As our journey continues through town, another familiar sound reaches our ears: the steady rhythm of a blacksmith's hammer. Imagine approaching the blacksmith shop. The forge glows warmly inside. Metal sparks occasionally flash into the air. The blacksmith works steadily, shaping iron with practiced skill. On the frontier, blacksmiths are essential. They repair wagon wheels, create tools, shoe horses, fix broken equipment. Without their work, daily life would become much more difficult. Imagine standing in the doorway for a moment. The heat from the forge contrasts sharply with the cooler air outside. The smell of smoke and hot metal fills the room. The blacksmith pauses briefly to greet a customer before returning to his work. Every strike of the hammer serves a purpose. Every repair helps keep the community functioning. As we continue our walk through town, we arrive at another important building, the church. Perhaps the structure is simple: white painted wood, modest windows, a small bell tower. Yet its importance extends far beyond its appearance. The church provides spiritual guidance, but it also serves as a gathering place. Community meetings may be held here, special events celebrated here, friendships strengthened here. Imagine a Sunday morning when families arrive from miles around. Wagons fill the nearby area. Neighbors greet one another warmly. Children play while adults exchange news. The church becomes a place of connection, a reminder that even on the vast prairie, people are not alone. As the afternoon slowly moves toward evening, let us visit the town's main street. Imagine walking along the boardwalk that runs beside several businesses, a barber shop, a small hotel, perhaps a doctor's office, maybe a bakery. The exact details vary from town to town, yet the atmosphere remains similar. People moving at an unhurried pace, conversations taking place on street corners, a sense of familiarity. Most residents know one another, or at least recognize one another. The town feels personal, comfortable, human. As sunlight casts a golden glow across the buildings, imagine a farmer completing his errands. Supplies have been purchased, mail has been collected, a few conversations have been enjoyed. Soon, it will be time to return home. But before leaving, there is one more stop: the post office. In many small towns, the arrival of mail is an important event. Letters connect families across great distances. Newspapers bring stories from other parts of the country. Information arrives slowly compared to modern standards. Yet perhaps that makes it feel more valuable. Imagine receiving a letter from a relative living in another state or another country. The envelope is carefully opened. The words are read slowly, thoughtfully. For a few moments, the distance between loved ones feels smaller. The post office helps maintain those connections. And on the frontier, connections matter. As evening approaches, the town begins settling down. Businesses prepare to close. Customers head home. Wagons leave one by one. The streets grow quieter. The pace slows. Imagine standing at the edge of town and looking back. The buildings glow softly in the late afternoon sunlight. The church steeple rises above the rooftops. The general store stands proudly on the main street. The blacksmith's forge continues burning as one last repair is completed. The town feels peaceful, stable, important, not because it is large, but because it serves the people who depend upon it. The farms need the town, and the town needs the farms. Together, they create a community larger than either could be alone. As our journey continues, the road stretches back toward the prairie. Families return to their homes. The evening breeze grows cooler. The sun moves lower toward the horizon. And throughout Nebraska, small towns continue serving as centers of connection, commerce, friendship, and community. Their buildings may be simple, their streets may be quiet, yet their role in frontier life is enormous. They bring people together, they provide opportunity, they create belonging. And beneath the endless Nebraska sky, They help transform a vast frontier into a place called home. The town slowly fades behind us as we continue our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska. Ahead, new stories await, new places, new experiences, and another chapter in the everyday lives of the people who built communities across the Great Plains. The small Nebraska town is settling into the gentle rhythm of late afternoon. Wagons stand beside wooden storefronts. Horses wait patiently in the shade. The warm glow of the sun falls across the boardwalks that line the main street. A light breeze carries the scent of dust, fresh-cut hay, and distant prairie grass. For a little while, let us remain here in town, because tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we step inside one of the most important buildings on the frontier, the general store. To modernize, it might seem like a simple shop, but to the people of Nebraska in 1880, the general store was much more than that. It was a marketplace, a meeting place, a source of information, a connection to the wider world. Imagine standing outside the store on a warm summer afternoon. The building is sturdy and practical. A wooden sign hangs above the entrance. A hitching rail stands nearby for horses. The windows display a few goods meant to attract attention. Nothing elaborate, just enough to let visitors know what can be found inside. Now imagine pushing open the door. A small bell rings overhead. Immediately the atmosphere changes. Outside lies the open prairie. Inside lies a world of goods and possibilities. The room smells faintly of wood, leather, coffee, and flour. Sunlight filters through the windows. Shelves stretch along the walls. Barrels stand neatly arranged. Boxes are stacked in corners. Every available space seems to hold something useful. Imagine taking a slow walk through the store. A barrel of nails sits near the entrance. Nearby are lanterns, ropes, and tools. Further along, shelves hold canned goods, sugar, coffee, and spices. Fabric hangs from wooden racks. Boots line another wall. The variety is remarkable, especially considering how far many of these items have traveled. A sack of coffee may have crossed oceans and railroads before arriving here. A bolt of fabric may have been manufactured hundreds of miles away. A tool may have passed through several cities before reaching this small Nebraska town. The store serves as a bridge between the frontier and the larger world beyond it. As our journey continues, imagine a farmer entering the store after a long morning of work. His list of needed supplies is simple. Perhaps flour, perhaps lamp oil, perhaps replacement hardware for a broken tool. The store owner greets him by name. Most customers are familiar faces. In a small town, relationships matter. Business is often personal. Conversations begin almost immediately. How are the crops this year? Did the recent rain help? Have you heard the news from the neighboring county? The exchange of information is nearly as important as the exchange of goods. Imagine standing quietly near the counter and listening. Stories drift through the room. Someone discusses the weather. Another talks about railroad expansion. A traveler shares news from a larger town. The store functions almost like a community newspaper. Information arrives here, then spreads outward across the countryside. As sunlight fills the room, another customer enters, a mother shopping for household necessities. Imagine her examining bolts of fabric. Clothing is often made or repaired at home. The right material matters. Careful decisions are made because purchases must be used wisely. Money can be scarce on the frontier. Every dollar has value. Waste is avoided whenever possible. Many families become skilled at stretching resources, making things last, finding creative solutions. The frontier encourages practicality. As our journey continues through the store, let us think about children. For many young people, a trip to town is exciting, and the general store may be the most exciting stop of all. Imagine a child standing near a display of candy. Bright wrappers catch the eye. The temptation is obvious. Perhaps a penny has been saved from earlier chores. Perhaps there is enough money for a small treat. The decision feels important. Moments like these often become cherished memories. A piece of candy purchased during a town visit, a rare luxury, a small reward. The simple pleasures of childhood remain surprisingly consistent across generations. As the afternoon moves forward, another fascinating object appears, a catalog. Perhaps from a large company such as Sears, Roebuck and Company, which would soon become famous for connecting rural families to products from across the country. Imagine turning the pages. Furniture, tools, clothing, kitchen supplies, items from distant factories and workshops. The catalog feels almost magical, a window into a larger world. For isolated families living on farms, these pages offer possibilities, ideas, dreams. Not every item can be purchased, but many can. And over time, mail-order businesses will help transform life on the prairie. Even in 1880, the seeds of that transformation are beginning to appear. As our journey continues, let us step behind the counter for a moment. Imagine being the store owner. Every shipment matters. Inventory must be managed carefully. Popular items need replacing. Seasonal goods must arrive at the right time. Transportation delays can create challenges. The success of the store depends upon planning, attention to detail, and a good understanding of the community's needs. The store owner knows which farmers need supplies, which families are preparing for winter, which products sell quickly. Running a frontier store requires both business skills and community awareness. As the sun begins sinking lower in the sky, another aspect of trade becomes visible: bartering. Money is important, but not every transaction involves cash. Imagine a farmer trading eggs or produce in exchange for goods. Such arrangements are common in many frontier communities. People work with the resources available. Flexibility helps everyone. The goal is not simply profit. The goal is keeping the community functioning. As golden sunlight pours through the windows, the atmosphere inside the store becomes even more peaceful. Customers continue arriving. Some purchase necessities, others stop by mainly to talk. The pace remains unhurried. No one seems rushed. Conversations unfold naturally. The store feels less like a business and more like a gathering place. And perhaps that is exactly what it is. As evening approaches, the store owner begins preparing to close. Shelves are straightened, the day's transactions are reviewed, customers gradually head home. One by one, wagons leave town and disappear onto prairie roads leading toward distant farms. The bell above the door rings a few final times, then the room grows quiet. Imagine standing alone inside the store. As the sun sets outside, the shelves remain full of useful goods. The wooden floor reflects the warm light of evening. The day's conversations linger in memory, and it becomes clear that the general store represents something larger than commerce. It represents connection, a place where isolated families become part of a community, a place where news arrives, where friendships are maintained, where needs are met, where the frontier feels a little less lonely. Outside, the sky is turning shades of gold and orange. The prairie breeze continues moving through the grass. The town grows quieter with each passing minute. And throughout Nebraska, general stores continue serving as lifelines for the people building lives on the Great Plains. Simple buildings, simple transactions, simple conversations. yet together they help shape the story of frontier life. The store door closes, the evening settles across the town, and our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues onward beneath the vast and peaceful prairie sky. The sun is drifting lower over the Nebraska prairie. The golden light of late afternoon stretches across fields, farmhouses, and small towns. The general store has begun closing its doors for the day. Wagons roll slowly along dusty roads toward distant farms. The wind moves gently through the grasslands. And across the Great Plains, families are beginning to think about something just as important as work: community. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we explore the social side of frontier life. Because while the prairie often provided solitude, people rarely wanted to live entirely alone. Human beings seek connection, friendship, conversation, shared experiences. And throughout Nebraska, communities found many ways to bring people together. Imagine a Sunday morning on the prairie. The sun rises over fields of corn and wheat. Families prepare for church. Children put on their best clothing. Horses are harnessed. Wagons are loaded. The trip may take time. Some families live several miles away, others perhaps even farther. Yet the journey feels worthwhile because church is more than a religious service. It is a gathering, a chance to see neighbors, a chance to exchange news, a chance to reconnect with friends. Imagine arriving at a small country church. The building stands alone against the wide Nebraska sky. White paint reflects the sunlight. A bell hangs in the steeple. Wagons gradually fill the nearby grounds. Families greet one another warmly. Children run about while adults talk beneath the shade of a few trees. The atmosphere feels welcoming, familiar, comfortable. For many settlers, church becomes one of the most important social institutions in their lives. As our journey continues, imagine stepping inside. Sunlight filters through the windows. Wooden pews fill the room. The congregation settles quietly into place. The service begins. Voices join together in song. The sound fills the building, simple, beautiful, human. And for a little while, the challenges of frontier life fade into the background. The community gathers as one. As the service ends, people linger outside. No one seems eager to leave. Conversations begin immediately. Crop conditions are discussed. Family news is shared. Plans are made. Friendships are renewed. In many ways, the gathering after the service becomes just as important as the service itself. The church helps transform scattered farms into a connected community. As the afternoon sunlight glows across the prairie, another type of gathering comes into view: the community picnic. Imagine a large group of families gathering near a creek or grove of trees. Long tables are covered with food. Children play nearby. Neighbors arrive carrying baskets filled with homemade dishes. The atmosphere is cheerful and relaxed. People laugh, talk, share stories. Events like these provide a welcome break from daily routines, and they strengthen the bonds that hold communities together. Imagine sitting beneath the shade of a tree. The breeze feels pleasant. The smell of food drifts through the air. Someone tells a funny story. Others smile and laugh. The moment feels simple, yet deeply meaningful, because happiness often grows from shared experiences rather than grand occasions. As our journey moves gently onward, another important celebration appears: a wedding. Imagine a frontier wedding taking place in a church or family home. Friends and neighbors gather from miles around. The event brings excitement to the entire community. People dress carefully, special meals are prepared, music may be played. The wedding represents not only the joining of two people, but the strengthening of community ties. On the frontier, relationships matter. Families support one another. Communities support families. Every celebration becomes something shared. As the afternoon slowly approaches evening, let us visit another gathering: A barn dance. Imagine a large barn illuminated by lantern light. Musicians tune their instruments. Neighbors arrive one by one. The atmosphere is lively but welcoming. Children watch from the sidelines. Adults dance and socialize. The music fills the space. For a few hours, worries about crops, weather, and chores are set aside. People simply enjoy one another's company. These events become treasured memories, stories retold years later, moments that remind people why community matters. As golden sunlight begins softening toward evening, another tradition emerges: the harvest celebration. Imagine the fields have produced a successful crop, months of hard work have paid off. The harvest is complete. Relief spreads through the community. Now there is reason to celebrate. Families gather, meals are shared, gratitude fills the air. The celebration acknowledges something important. Success on the prairie rarely comes from luck alone. It comes from effort, patience, perseverance, and often cooperation. The harvest marks the reward for all of those things. As our journey continues through the warm evening light, let us think about loneliness. We have spoken before about the distances between farms, the vastness of the prairie, the isolation that some settlers experienced. Community gatherings help address that challenge. A church service, a picnic, a dance, a wedding. Each event creates connection. Each event reminds people that they are part of something larger than themselves. Imagine a newly arrived family attending one of these gatherings for the first time. At first, they may feel uncertain, unfamiliar with their neighbors, unsure of their place within the community. But conversations begin. Introductions are made. Friendships slowly form. Before long, the family feels at home. This process happened again and again throughout Nebraska. Communities welcomed newcomers and grew stronger because of it. As evening approaches, the sky begins changing colors. Soft gold becomes orange. Orange becomes pink. Long shadows stretch across the prairie. Families begin preparing for the journey home. Wagons are loaded, goodbyes are exchanged. Children grow sleepy after a day filled with excitement. The gathering slowly comes to an end, yet its effects remain. Friendships have been strengthened. News has been shared. Memories have been created. The community feels a little closer than before. Imagine standing quietly as the last wagons disappear down prairie roads. The church grows silent. The picnic grounds empty. The music fades into memory. The evening breeze moves through the grass. And for a moment, the landscape becomes peaceful once more. The frontier often required hard work, long hours, patience, determination, but it also offered moments of joy, moments of connection, moments when people came together simply to enjoy one another's company. Those moments mattered, perhaps more than we sometimes realize, because communities are built not only through labor and responsibility, they are also built through friendship, celebration, conversation, and shared experience. The sun continues sinking toward the horizon. The prairie glows beneath the evening light. And throughout Nebraska, churches, picnics, dances, weddings, and countless other gatherings continue helping transform a vast frontier into a collection of thriving communities. The roads stretch toward distant farms. The towns prepare for evening, and our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues onward beneath the endless Great Plains sky. The evening light spreads softly across the Nebraska prairie. The community gathering has come to an end. Wagons travel slowly along dusty roads. Families return to farms scattered across the countryside. The church bell is silent. The picnic grounds are empty. The wind moves gently through the grass as the sun sinks lower toward the western horizon. The prairie feels peaceful. Yet beneath that peaceful surface, Nebraska in 1880 is experiencing a transformation unlike anything previous generations could have imagined. Tonight, As our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we follow the iron rails that are changing the Great Plains forever, the railroad. Imagine standing on a hill overlooking the prairie. Fields stretch toward the horizon, farmhouses dot the landscape, and cutting across the open grasslands is something entirely new, a railroad track. 2 lines of steel extending as far as the eye can see, simple, straight, powerful. To modernize, railroad tracks may seem ordinary, but to many people living in Nebraska during the late 19th century, they felt almost miraculous. They connected distant places. They shortened journeys. They carried goods, people, and information across enormous distances. And they changed daily life in countless ways. Imagine a farmer who arrived in Nebraska 20 years earlier. He remembers a time before the railroad reached his region. Travel was slower. Supplies were harder to obtain. Markets felt distant. Communication required patience. Now everything is different. The railroad has brought the wider world closer. As our journey continues, let us travel to a small town depot on a summer evening. The station stands beside the tracks. A wooden platform stretches along one side. A telegraph office occupies part of the building. Several people wait nearby. Some are expecting packages. Others are meeting travelers. A few simply enjoy watching the trains arrive. The depot feels important because it is important. It serves as the town's connection to places beyond the horizon. Imagine hearing the train before you see it. A distant whistle echoes across the prairie. The sound carries for miles. People pause and look toward the tracks. The whistle comes again, closer this time. Soon a column of smoke appears in the distance. The train is approaching. For many children growing up in Nebraska, trains are endlessly fascinating. The size, the speed, the noise, the mystery of where they have come from and where they are going. Imagine a young boy standing beside the depot, watching with excitement. The locomotive grows larger. The ground seems to vibrate slightly. Then the train arrives with a rush of sound and motion. Steam rises into the air. Brakes hiss. Passengers step down onto the platform. The scene feels energetic and alive. The railroad brings movement to the prairie. As the train stands at the station, activity fills the platform. Mailbags are unloaded. Packages are transferred. Passengers greet waiting friends and relatives. The depot becomes a place of arrivals and departures, of reunions and farewells, of stories beginning and ending. Imagine receiving a package from a distant city. Perhaps it contains tools, perhaps books, perhaps fabric ordered months earlier. The contents matter, but so does what the package represents: connection, proof that the wider world is within these reach. As our evening journey continues, let us think about travel. Before railroads, long-distance journeys could require weeks, sometimes months. Roads were rough, weather created delays, distances felt enormous. The railroad changes that reality. Imagine boarding a train for the first time. You step into a passenger car. The whistle sounds. The train begins moving. The landscape slides past the window. Fields, towns, rivers, prairies. The journey feels almost magical. Places that once seemed impossibly distant become accessible. For many settlers, the railroad expands their understanding of the world. As the sun continues lowering toward the horizon, another important effect becomes visible: trade. Nebraska farmers grow crops, raise livestock, produce goods, but those products must reach markets. The railroad makes that possible. Imagine a grain elevator standing beside the tracks. Wagons arrive carrying harvested grain. The grain is loaded onto rail cars. Soon it will travel hundreds of miles, perhaps farther. The railroad creates opportunities that did not previously exist. Farmers can sell to larger markets. Communities can grow. Businesses can expand, economic possibilities multiply. As our journey continues beside the tracks, imagine a merchant standing outside a general store. Many of the goods on his shelves arrive by train: coffee, tools, clothing, hardware, household supplies. The railroad helps stock the store, and the store helps serve the community. The connections between farms, towns, businesses, and railroads become stronger every year. The entire region grows more interconnected. As evening shadows lengthen across the prairie, let us step inside the telegraph office. A telegraph operator sits at a desk. Messages arrive through wires connected to distant cities. The clicking sounds fill the room. Short messages travel across great distances in minutes rather than weeks. For many people, this technology feels astonishing. Information moves faster than ever before. The world seems smaller, closer, more connected. The railroad and telegraph often work together. One moves people and goods, the other moves information. Together, they transform frontier life. As the golden light softens further, imagine a small town that exists because of the railroad. Only a few years earlier, there may have been nothing here but prairie. Then the tracks arrived. A depot was built. Businesses followed. Families settled nearby. A town appeared. This pattern repeated throughout Nebraska. The railroad helped determine where communities would grow. Some towns prospered because the tracks passed through them. Others struggled because they did not. The influence of the railroad reached far beyond transportation. It shaped the geography of settlement itself. As our journey moves gently onward, another train approaches from the distance. Its whistle echoes across the evening landscape. The sound feels familiar now, comforting even. A reminder that the prairie is no longer isolated. The frontier remains vast. Yet, it is increasingly connected to the rest of the nation. Imagine standing beside the tracks as the train disappears into the distance. The rails continue stretching toward the horizon. The sky glows with shades of gold and orange. The prairie breeze moves softly through the grass. The moment feels peaceful, reflective. The railroad has brought change, a great deal of change. Yet Nebraska remains Nebraska. The fields still grow beneath the sun. Families still gather around supper tables. Children still attend school. Communities still rely upon one another. The railroad does not replace frontier life. It becomes part of it. As the sun approaches the horizon, the depot grows quieter. The day's final passengers have departed. The mail has been delivered. The platform stands empty beneath the evening sky. And throughout Nebraska, trains continue carrying people, goods, and dreams across the Great Plains. The whistle fades into the distance. The prairie grows calm once more. And our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues onward beneath the soft light of the setting sun, following the rails that helped connect a frontier to the wider world. The last train of the day has disappeared beyond the horizon. Its whistle has faded into the evening air. The depot stands quiet once more. Across Nebraska, the sun continues its slow descent toward the western prairie. Long shadows stretch across fields and towns. The warm days of summer seem endless. The crops stand tall. The grasslands glow beneath golden light. And yet, for the people of 1880 Nebraska, another season is never far away. Winter. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, the seasons begin to change. The long days of summer gradually give way to autumn. The harvest approaches. The air grows cooler. The sunlight arrives later and leaves earlier. And across the Great Plains, families begin preparing for one of the most important seasons of the year. Imagine standing beside a farmhouse on an autumn morning. The prairie looks different now. The colors have changed. Fields that once glowed bright green now display shades of gold and brown. The breeze carries a noticeable chill. The sky seems larger somehow, clearer, more distant. The harvest is underway. Wagons move through the fields. Families work together, gathering the results of months of labor. The atmosphere feels busy but hopeful. A successful harvest means security. It means food for the months ahead. It means another winter can be faced with confidence. Imagine a farmer looking across a field that has just been harvested. The work has been demanding, long hours, early mornings, late evenings. Yet there is satisfaction in seeing the crop safely gathered. The grain will be stored. The livestock will be fed. The family will have what it needs. For many settlers, autumn is both a season of work and a season of gratitude. As our journey continues through the changing landscape, let us imagine the first snowfall of the year. Perhaps it arrives quietly, small flakes drifting from a gray sky. The prairie becomes still, the wind slows. The world seems to hold its breath. Children rush to windows. Adults step outside to observe the weather. The first snow always feels significant, a reminder that winter has arrived. Imagine watching the snowfall from the porch of a farmhouse. The flakes settle gently upon fences, rooftops, and fields. The familiar landscape begins transforming. Colors fade beneath a blanket of white. The prairie becomes quieter, softer, more peaceful. There's a special beauty to winter on the Great Plains, a beauty that many settlers learn to appreciate, even while respecting the challenges it could bring. As the season deepens, temperatures continue falling. The wind becomes stronger. Snow drifts appear along roads and fences. The prairie that felt open and welcoming during summer now feels powerful, vast, unpredictable. Imagine standing outside on a winter morning. The air feels sharp and cold. Your breath becomes visible. The snow crunches beneath your boots. The sky is brilliantly blue above the white landscape. The scene is beautiful, yet it demands preparation. Winter rewards those who plan ahead. Throughout Nebraska, families spend months preparing for this season. Imagine a barn filled with hay, wood stacked beside the house, food preserved in jars and storage rooms. Every preparation serves a purpose. The frontier teaches people to think ahead. A difficult winter can test even the most experienced settlers. Good preparation makes all the difference. As our journey continues into the heart of winter, imagine a family gathered inside a farmhouse during a snowstorm. Outside, the wind blows across the prairie. Snow moves through the air in swirling patterns. Visibility disappears beyond the windows. The landscape seems to vanish. Inside, however, the atmosphere feels warm and secure. The stove radiates heat. The family sits together. The storm continues outside, but life carries on. Moments like these were common throughout Nebraska winters. The weather could not always be controlled, but families learned how to adapt, how to endure, how to create comfort even during difficult conditions. Imagine listening to the sound of the wind outside, the steady crackle of the stove, the quiet voices of family members. The contrast between the storm and the warmth of the home feels especially comforting. Many settlers likely remembered such evenings for years afterward. As the winter season progresses, daily life changes. Work continues, of course. Animals still require care. Chores still need attention. Yet the pace often becomes slightly different. Fields rest beneath the snow. The harvest is complete. Some tasks move indoors. Imagine a father repairing tools near the stove, a mother sewing clothing, children reading, studying, or playing simple games. Winter encourages people to spend more time together. The long evenings create opportunities for conversation and storytelling. Stories become especially important during these months. Imagine a family gathered after supper. The day's work is finished. The storm outside is quieted. Someone begins telling a story. Perhaps it concerns an earlier winter, perhaps a journey across the prairie, perhaps a humorous memory from years ago. The children listen carefully. The room fills with laughter. These stories strengthen family bonds. They pass knowledge from one generation to the next, and they make long winter evenings feel shorter. As our journey continues, let us think about travel. Winter can make transportation difficult. Roads disappear beneath snow. Wind creates drifts. Journeys require caution. Imagine a wagon moving slowly across a snow-covered prairie. The landscape looks completely different than it did during summer. Familiar landmarks are hidden. Distances seem greater. The traveler moves carefully, patiently. The frontier demands respect during every season. Winter perhaps more than any other. Yet despite these challenges, life continues. Communities continue functioning. Neighbors continue helping one another. The spirit of cooperation remains strong. As the afternoon light fades from a winter day, the prairie becomes incredibly beautiful. The low sun reflects from the snow. The landscape glows with soft colors: pink, gold, blue. The silence feels almost complete. Imagine standing outside for a moment before returning to the warmth of the house. The cold air touches your face. The sky stretches endlessly overhead. The snow-covered prairie extends toward every horizon. The scene feels timeless, peaceful, almost dreamlike. Winter reveals a different side of Nebraska, a quieter side, a more reflective side. As evening arrives, lanterns begin glowing inside homes across the countryside. Families gather together. The wind continues moving across the plains. The snow reflects the light of the moon and stars. And throughout Nebraska, people settle in for another winter night. The season is challenging, yet it also carries its own unique beauty, its own rhythms, its own traditions. The prairie rests beneath a blanket of snow. The fields wait patiently for spring, and the people who call Nebraska home continue adapting to the changing seasons of frontier life. The winter night grows deeper. The farmhouse remains warm. The prairie remains silent beneath the stars. And our journey through life in 1880, Nebraska continues onward through the snowy landscapes of the Great Plains, where endurance and beauty often walk hand in hand. The winter night settles gently across Nebraska. Snow covers the prairie in a blanket of white. Farmhouses glow softly in the darkness. Lantern light shines through frosted windows. The wind moves quietly across fields that only a few months earlier were green with growing crops. The world feels peaceful, still, almost silent, and yet every person living on the Great Plains understands an important truth. The prairie can be calm, but it can also be powerful. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we explore the storms that shaped frontier life. Not with fear, not with drama, but with respect. Because the people who lived here learned that nature was one of their greatest teachers. Imagine waking on a winter morning and noticing that the sky looks different. The horizon appears hazy. Clouds gather in the distance. The wind feels stronger than usual. Experienced settlers pay attention to these signs. Years on the prairie have taught them that weather can change quickly. The Great Plains possess a character all their own. Wide open spaces allow storms to travel great distances. The same openness that creates beautiful sunsets and endless views can also create powerful weather. Imagine stepping outside and looking toward the northern horizon. The wind carries fine snow across the fields. The air feels colder. The livestock seem restless. Something is approaching. Not immediately, not dramatically, but steadily. As our journey continues, let us think about the relationship between settlers and weather. Modern forecasts did not exist. There were no weather apps, no television reports, no satellite images. People relied upon observation, experience, and wisdom passed from one generation to another. They watched the sky, the clouds, the wind, the behavior of animals. Nature provided clues for those willing to notice them. Imagine a farmer standing near his barn. He studies the horizon carefully, then begins making preparations. Extra feed is moved indoors. Tools are secured. Animals are checked. The family gathers supplies. Preparation becomes a habit on the frontier, not because disaster is expected, but because readiness provides peace of mind. As afternoon passes, the wind grows stronger. Snow begins falling more heavily. The landscape slowly disappears beneath drifting white. Fence lines become harder to see. Roads become less distinct. The familiar prairie begins transforming. Imagine watching from a farmhouse window. The world outside appears softer now, more distant. The snow moves in graceful patterns across the fields. The wind whistles gently around the corners of the house. Inside, the family remains warm. The stove burns steadily. The atmosphere feels safe and comfortable. This contrast between the weather outside and the warmth inside creates some of the most memorable moments of frontier life. As our journey moves deeper into winter, imagine a true prairie blizzard, not a violent scene, but a powerful one. Snow fills the air. The wind moves continuously across the open land. Visibility becomes limited. The horizon disappears. Sky and earth seem to merge into a single white landscape. For settlers, these storms demanded patience. Travel became difficult, sometimes impossible. The safest place was often home. Imagine a family spending the day indoors while a storm passes outside. Books are read, repairs are completed, meals are prepared, stories are shared, life slows down. The storm creates an unexpected pause, an opportunity to spend time together. The prairie may feel isolated during such moments, yet there is also comfort in family and routine. As the wind continues beyond the windows, another important feature of frontier life becomes visible: community. Imagine a storm ending after several days. The sky clears, sunlight returns. Neighbors begin checking on one another. A wagon appears in the distance. Someone offers assistance. Another family shares supplies. Throughout Nebraska, cooperation often helped communities weather difficult seasons. People understood that helping others strengthened everyone. The prairie encouraged self-reliance, but it also encouraged kindness. As our nighttime journey continues, let us leave winter for a moment and think about another kind of storm, a summer thunderstorm. Imagine standing beside a field during the warm months. The air feels heavy. Clouds gather overhead. The distant sound of thunder rolls across the prairie. Unlike winter storms, summer storms often arrive with dramatic skies. Towering clouds rise high above the landscape. Shadows move across the fields. The atmosphere feels charged with energy. Then the rain begins. Large drops strike the earth. The smell of rain fills the air. Lightning flashes in the distance. The prairie welcomes the moisture. Farmers often view summer rain with gratitude. Crops need water. Fields depend upon it. A good rain can transform an entire season. Imagine sitting beneath a covered porch while rain falls across the prairie. The sound is soothing, steady, rhythmic. The fields drink deeply. Creeks fill with water. The landscape seems refreshed. Not every storm brings trouble. Many bring life. As the years pass, settlers learn to appreciate both sides of prairie weather, its beauty and its power, its challenges and its gifts. As our journey continues beneath the winter stars, imagine an elderly farmer sitting near a stove on a cold evening. He has witnessed many seasons, many storms, many winters. He remembers years of heavy snow Years of drought, years of excellent harvest, years of difficulty. And through all of it, he has learned something important. The prairie cannot be controlled, only respected. That lesson appears again and again throughout frontier life. People adapt to the land, they learn from it, they work with it rather than against it, and in doing so, they become stronger. As midnight settles across Nebraska, the wind outside begins to quiet. The storm has passed. The snow-covered fields shimmer beneath moonlight. The stars emerge overhead. The landscape feels calm once more. Imagine stepping outside for a moment. The air is cold and clear. The snow reflects the starlight. The prairie stretches endlessly toward the horizon. The silence feels profound, peaceful. The storm is now a memory. And like so many challenges on the frontier, it has become part of the larger story. A story of resilience, preparation, patience, and community. The settlers of Nebraska did not overcome every challenge easily, but they learned how to endure, how to adapt, how to continue moving forward one season at a time. The stars shine brightly above the prairie. The farmhouses glow warmly in the darkness. The wind has grown gentle once more, and throughout Nebraska, families rest peacefully after another winter day. The storms may come and go. The seasons may change, but life on the Great Plains continues, steady, determined, hopeful. And as the long winter night stretches across the prairie, our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues onward beneath the endless sky. The storm has passed. Outside, the Nebraska prairie rests beneath a blanket of snow. The wind has grown quiet. The stars shine clearly overhead. Moonlight reflects softly across fields, fences, and frozen creeks. The world feels calm, still, peaceful. Inside the farmhouse, however, there is warmth. A gentle glow spills from the windows. The wood stove burns steadily. And as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we step into one of the most comforting parts of frontier life. The evening. The work of the day is finished. The animals have been fed. The chores have been completed. The supper dishes have been washed and put away. For a little while, there is nothing left to do except enjoy the company of family. Imagine entering a farmhouse on a winter evening. The room is illuminated by lamplight. Soft golden light fills the space. Shadows dance gently against the walls. The stove radiates comforting warmth. Outside, the prairie remains cold and silent. Inside, the atmosphere feels safe, welcoming, home. For many frontier families, evenings offered a rare opportunity to slow down. The demands of the day could be set aside. The pace became gentler. Conversation replaced labor. Reflection replaced responsibility. Imagine a family gathering around the main room after supper. Parents sit near the stove. Children settle into chairs or onto the floor. The youngest may already be fighting sleep. The oldest listen quietly as the evening unfolds. Nobody is in a hurry. The long winter night stretches ahead. As our journey continues, imagine someone opening a book. Books were treasured possessions in many frontier homes. They provided knowledge, entertainment, escape. A single book might be read many times over the years. Imagine the father reading aloud to the family. His voice fills the room. The children listen carefully. The story carries them to distant places, perhaps a bustling city, perhaps a faraway country, perhaps another time entirely. For a little while, the boundaries of the prairie disappear. The imagination takes over. Reading aloud was a common form of entertainment. And in a world without television or radio, stories held a special power. As the lamp flickers gently nearby, another activity begins. Sewing. Imagine a mother sitting beside the light, carefully repairing clothing. A needle moves steadily, through fabric. The work is familiar, comfortable. Clothing on the frontier was valuable. Garments were mended repeatedly. Nothing useful was discarded without reason. The task requires patience, yet it also provides an opportunity for conversation. Stories are shared while hands remain busy. The rhythm of work and conversation blends together naturally. As the evening progresses, another familiar sound emerges. Music. Imagine someone retrieving a fiddle from a nearby shelf. Perhaps another family member knows a few songs. The music begins softly. Simple melodies fill the room. No grand performance, no audience, just family members enjoying a few moments together. Throughout Nebraska, music played an important role in daily life. Songs helped pass the time, preserved traditions, created memories. Even the simplest tune could brighten a winter evening. As our journey continues through the warm farmhouse, imagine a child asking a question, perhaps about the past, perhaps about a place the family once lived. Children are naturally curious, and evenings often provided opportunities to satisfy that curiosity. Parents and grandparents shared stories, stories about earlier years, stories about journeys westward, stories about life before Nebraska. Imagine an older family member describing the day they first arrived on the prairie. The landscape seemed endless, the future uncertain, the opportunities exciting. The children listen with fascination. To them, these stories feel almost legendary. Yet for the storyteller, they are simply memories, moments from a life already lived. As the night deepens, storytelling becomes the center of attention. Imagine sitting near the stove while the wind whispers faintly outside. Someone begins recounting an amusing event from years ago. A wagon stuck in mud, a misunderstanding at a town gathering, an unexpected visitor. The room fills with laughter, not loud laughter, gentle laughter, the kind that comes from shared experiences and familiar company. These stories help preserve family history. Long before photographs became common and long before digital records existed, stories carried memories from one generation to the next. As the lamp continues glowing, let us think about time. Winter evenings often felt longer in 1880 than they do today. Without endless distractions, people became more aware of the passage of time, the crackle of the fire, the ticking of a clock, the movement of shadows across the wall, the slow progression of the night. There was something calming about it, something that encouraged patience, reflection, presence. Imagine stepping outside for a brief moment before returning indoors. The cold air touches your face. The sky is filled with stars, far more stars than most people see today. The Milky Way stretches across the heavens like a river of light. The prairie beneath it lies silent. The scene feels enormous, yet comforting. The farmhouse glows warmly behind you, a small island of light in a vast landscape. Moments like this remind people how precious home can be. As our journey returns indoors, the evening continues quietly. Perhaps a child finishes homework from the schoolhouse. Perhaps someone writes a letter to relatives living far away. Perhaps another family member carves a small object from wood. Every activity unfolds at an unhurried pace. The atmosphere remains peaceful. The long winter evening creates space for things that busy days often leave little room for: conversation, creativity, reflection, togetherness. As the night grows later, tiredness begins to appear. The youngest children grow sleepy. Yawns become more frequent. The lamp burns a little lower. One by one, family members begin preparing for bed. Tomorrow will bring another day of work, another sunrise over the prairie, another chapter in frontier life. But for now, the day is ending. Imagine looking around the room one final time. The stove glows softly. The chairs sit quietly. The book has been closed. The music has ended. The stories have been told. A sense of contentment fills the house. Not because life is perfect, but because this moment is enough. Warmth, family, shelter, peace, the things that matter most. Outside, the snow-covered prairie sleeps beneath the stars. Inside, the farmhouse grows quiet. The lamp is extinguished. Darkness settles gently over the room. And throughout Nebraska, countless families drift toward sleep after another winter evening by lamplight. The prairie remains silent. The stars continue their slow journey overhead. And our own journey through life in 1880 Nebraska moves onward into the deeper hours of the night, carried by memories, stories, and the enduring comfort of home. The farmhouse has grown quiet. The lamp has been extinguished. The stories have been told. The laughter of the evening has faded into memory. Outside, the Nebraska prairie rests beneath a sky filled with stars. Snow covers the fields. The wind has become gentle once more. And throughout the countryside, families sleep peacefully in homes scattered across the Great Plains. The night is deep now, the kind of night that invites reflection, the kind of night that encourages thoughts about the past and the future. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we explore something less visible than farms, railroads, towns, or schoolhouses. We explore hope, because every family who came to Nebraska carried hopes with them, dreams, plans, possibilities, and those hopes shaped the future just as surely as any building or railroad. Imagine standing outside a farmhouse on a clear winter night. The stars stretch endlessly across the sky. The prairie lies silent beneath the moonlight. The landscape feels timeless. Yet the people living here know that change is happening. The towns are growing, the railroads are expanding. New families continue arriving. The future seems full of possibilities. Imagine a farmer sitting quietly after a long day of work. The house is peaceful. The children are asleep. The responsibilities of the day have ended. For a few moments, he allows himself to think about the years ahead. Perhaps he imagines larger fields, better harvests, additional buildings on the farm. Maybe he hopes his children will have opportunities he never had. These thoughts are common throughout Nebraska. Most settlers did not endure hardships simply to survive. They endured them because they believed tomorrow could be better than today. As our journey continues through the stillness of the night, imagine a mother looking toward the future. Her hopes may be different. Perhaps she dreams of seeing her children receive a good education. Perhaps she hopes the family will become more secure. Perhaps she imagines the small frontier town nearby growing into a thriving community. The details vary, but the feeling remains the same: hope, the belief that effort invested today can create a better tomorrow. That belief appears everywhere on the frontier. Imagine a young boy lying awake for a few extra minutes before sleep arrives. He has spent the day helping with chores, attending school, exploring the prairie. Now, beneath a warm blanket, his thoughts wander toward the future. Perhaps he dreams of owning land one day. Perhaps he dreams of traveling on the railroad. Perhaps he imagines visiting distant cities he has only read about. Children often view the future differently than adults. For them, it feels wide open, full of possibilities. And in 1880 Nebraska, possibilities seem almost as vast as the prairie itself. As the stars continue their slow journey overhead, another thought emerges. The people living here are building more than farms. They are building communities, schools, churches, businesses, roads, institutions that will serve future generations. Many settlers understand this. even if they rarely say it aloud. Imagine attending a town meeting on a cold winter evening. Community members gather to discuss improvements. Perhaps a new school is needed. Perhaps roads require maintenance. Perhaps a bridge should be built. These conversations reveal something important. People are thinking long term. They are investing in places they expect to endure. That confidence helps communities grow. As our journey moves deeper into the night, imagine a teacher reflecting on her students. Each child represents potential, a future not yet written. Some may become farmers, some merchants, some teachers themselves. Others may travel far beyond Nebraska. No one can know for certain. But education helps create opportunities, and opportunities help shape futures. The one-room schoolhouse is not merely a building. It is an investment in tomorrow. The same could be said of nearly everything we have visited throughout our journey. The railroad, the church, the farm, the town, each represents faith in the future. As the winter night remains calm and still, let us think about Nebraska itself. In 1880, much of the state still feels young. Many communities are only a few years old. Large stretches of prairie remain sparsely settled, yet change is happening rapidly. Imagine looking across the landscape and trying to predict what it will become. The task would not be easy. No one can see the future clearly. Yet many settlers believe growth will continue. They believe more families will arrive, more towns will appear, more opportunities will emerge. And in many ways, they are right. The future they imagine will eventually become reality. As our journey continues, imagine a family receiving a letter from relatives back east. The letter asks an important question. Was moving to Nebraska worth it? The answer may not be simple. Frontier life is difficult. There are storms, droughts, long hours of labor, moments of loneliness. Yet there are also opportunities, freedom, land, community, a chance to build something lasting. For many settlers, those opportunities make the challenges worthwhile. They remain because they believe in the future, and belief can be a powerful force. As the night slowly begins moving toward its final hours, the prairie remains peaceful beneath the stars. The snow reflects faint moonlight. The farmhouses rest quietly across the landscape. The towns sleep. The railroad stands silent until morning. Everything feels still. Yet even in this stillness, the future continues taking shape. A child sleeps and dreams. A farmer plans next year's crops. A teacher prepares future lessons. A merchant considers new opportunities. Life moves forward, even during the quietest hours of the night. Imagine standing once more beneath the vast Nebraska sky. The stars seem endless. The prairie stretches toward every horizon. The world feels larger than any one person. Yet the hopes of ordinary people matter. The dreams of families matter. The plans made around kitchen tables matter. Because history is often shaped by countless individuals quietly working toward better futures. The settlers of Nebraska may not realize it, but they are helping create the state that future generations will inherit. One field at a time, one school at a time, one family at a time. The night continues its slow passage. The stars shine overhead. The prairie remains calm and silent. And throughout Nebraska, dreams of the future rest alongside memories of the past. Together, they create the story of a frontier still growing, still changing, and still full of possibility. The hours before dawn are approaching. Morning remains far away, yet it is coming, as it always does. And our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues gently onward toward that distant horizon, carried by the hopes and dreams of the people who called the prairie home. The night is beginning to change, not suddenly, not dramatically, but slowly, in the quiet way that all mornings arrive upon the Great Plains. The stars still shine above Nebraska. The snow-covered fields still rest beneath the moonlight. The farmhouses remain dark and peaceful. The towns sleep quietly beneath the vast winter sky. Yet somewhere beyond the eastern horizon, the first signs of dawn are beginning to appear. A faint softening of the darkness, a subtle hint that the long night is nearing its end. Tonight, as our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska continues, we enter those beautiful hours just before sunrise, the hours when the prairie feels especially still, especially reflective, and especially timeless. Imagine standing outside a farmhouse before dawn. The air is cold and crisp. The snow beneath your boots sparkles faintly in the starlight. The world is silent. No wagons travel the roads, no school bells ring, no trains move across the prairie. Everything seems to pause between yesterday and tomorrow. Moments like this invite reflection, and after everything we have experienced throughout our journey, there is much to reflect upon. For many hours, we have walked beside the people of 1880 Nebraska. We have watched the sun rise over the prairie. We have shared breakfast inside farmhouses, worked in the fields, visited schools, explored towns, traveled by railroad, experienced storms, listened to stories beside warm stoves on winter evenings. And through it all, we have come to understand something important. The story of Nebraska is not merely the story of land, or buildings, or railroads. It is the story of people, ordinary people, families, neighbors, teachers, farmers, merchants, children, people whose names may never appear in history books, yet whose efforts shape the future in countless ways. As the eastern horizon grows slightly brighter, imagine looking across the prairie. The darkness still dominates the landscape, yet the outlines of distant fields begin to emerge. Fence lines become visible once again. The roofs of farmhouses appear faintly against the snow. The world is slowly returning, much like the communities we have explored throughout our journey. Most of them began quietly. A single family arrives, then another. A road is established, a school is built, a church is constructed, a store opens its doors. One small step leads to another, and before long, a community exists where none existed before. History often grows this way, gradually, patiently, almost unnoticed, until one day the results become impossible to ignore. Imagine a farmer standing outside his home during these early hours. He has lived on the prairie for many years. He remembers when the land looked different, when fewer neighbors lived nearby, when roads were rougher, when towns were smaller. Now he sees signs of progress everywhere. The changes happened slowly, yet they happened nonetheless. And that realization brings a quiet sense of satisfaction. As our journey continues through the pre-dawn stillness, another thought emerges. Every generation inherits something from those who came before. The settlers of Nebraska inherited knowledge, traditions, and values from earlier generations. Then they added something of their own, the schools they built, the farms they established, the communities they created. Future generations would inherit those contributions and continue building upon them. The process never truly ends. Imagine a young child sleeping peacefully inside a farmhouse. The child knows little about the future. The years ahead remain unwritten. Yet opportunities exist because earlier generations worked to create them. A school stands nearby. A community offers support. Roads connect distant places. The future rests upon foundations built by countless ordinary people. That truth appears again and again throughout history. As the stars begin losing a little of their brightness, the prairie remains quiet. The snow reflects faint traces of the coming dawn. The world feels calm, balanced, almost suspended in time. Imagine standing beside the railroad tracks we visited earlier. The rails stretch toward the horizon, silent now, waiting for the day to begin. Those tracks symbolize something larger than transportation. They symbolize connection, movement, opportunity. The same themes appear throughout the Nebraska story. People connecting with one another, communities growing, dreams expanding beyond the horizon. As the first hints of color appear in the eastern sky, another sound joins the silence. A bird, then another. The earliest voices of morning. The prairie is beginning to wake, not fully, not yet, but the transition has begun. The long winter night is slowly releasing its hold on the land. Imagine looking across a small Nebraska town during these early moments. The streets remain empty. The storefronts are dark. The church steeple stands quietly against the brightening sky. Yet soon the town will awaken. The general store will open. The blacksmith will begin work. Children will prepare for school. The rhythms of daily life will return, just as they have countless times before, and just as they will countless times again. As our journey approaches its final chapter, let us think about legacy. The people we have met throughout this story did not know exactly what the future would bring. They could not imagine modern Nebraska. They could not foresee the technologies, cities, and changes that future generations would experience. But they did something equally important. They created foundations. They built homes, communities, schools, relationships, institutions, and those foundations endured. The horizon glows softly now. The darkness continues retreating. The stars fade one by one. The prairie begins revealing itself beneath the approaching dawn. Fields, roads, farmhouses, towns. The landscape returns to view, and with it comes a sense of appreciation for everything we have witnessed. The courage required to begin again, the patience required to build, the determination required to endure, the kindness required to create community. These qualities appear throughout the story of Nebraska, and perhaps they remain part of its character even today. The first true light of morning is almost here. The sun waits just beyond the horizon. A new day is preparing to begin. The prairie remains peaceful. The snow-covered fields glow softly in the growing light. And throughout Nebraska, the legacy of ordinary people rests quietly beneath the sky. The night is ending. The dawn is arriving. And our journey through life in 1880, Nebraska moves gently toward its final sunrise. The sun rises slowly over Nebraska. At first, only a narrow band of gold appears along the eastern horizon. Then, little by little, the light grows stronger. The darkness that has accompanied us through the long prairie night begins to fade. The stars disappear into the brightening sky. The snow-covered fields reflect the first rays of morning. The farmhouses emerge from the shadows, and across the Great Plains, a new day begins. For many hours, we have traveled together through the story of life in 1880 Nebraska. We have watched the sun rise over endless grasslands. We have walked beside farmers working their fields. We have shared meals around family tables. We have visited one-room schoolhouses in small frontier towns. We have listened to trains crossing the prairie. We have endured winter storms. We have spent quiet evenings beside warm stoves and gentle lamplight. And now, as the morning sun climbs above the horizon, our journey reaches its final chapter. Imagine standing upon a gentle rise overlooking the Nebraska prairie. The first sunlight spreads across the land. The snow glows softly beneath the golden light. The sky grows brighter with every passing moment. In the distance, smoke begins rising from farmhouse chimneys. The day is awakening. The prairie is awakening. And with it comes a deeper appreciation for the people whose lives we have shared. The people of 1880 Nebraska were not famous. Most never appeared in newspapers beyond their local communities. Most never expected to be remembered by future generations. They were farmers, teachers, merchants, parents, children, neighbors, ordinary people living ordinary lives. Yet history is often built by ordinary people, one family at a time, one community at a time, one generation at a time. Imagine a farmhouse beginning another day. A fire is lit in the stove. Breakfast is prepared. Children wake and prepare for school. The familiar routines return. The same routines we have followed throughout our journey. Simple routines, yet meaningful ones. Because within those daily tasks lies the story of an entire society. The frontier was not built only through great events. It was built through everyday effort, through countless small acts repeated over years and decades. A fence repaired, a field planted, a lesson taught, a meal prepared, a neighbor helped. These actions may seem modest, yet together they created communities, and communities created the future. As the sunlight spreads farther across the prairie, the details of the landscape become clearer. The roads, the barns, the churches, the schoolhouses, the railroad tracks stretching toward distant horizons. Each tells a story. Each represents hope invested in tomorrow. The people who built these things believed in the future, even when the future remained uncertain, perhaps especially when it remained uncertain. Imagine a teacher unlocking the door of a one-room schoolhouse. Soon students will arrive, some walking, some riding horses, some traveling by wagon. The classroom will fill with young voices once again. The lessons taught there may seem simple, reading, writing, arithmetic, yet those lessons will help shape lives, and shaped lives help shape communities. The same could be said of every institution we encountered along our journey: the church, the general store, the railroad depot, the family farm. Each played a role. Each contributed something important. As our journey continues through the growing light of morning, let us think about the seasons. We experience the warmth of summer, the harvests of autumn, the storms of winter, the quiet beauty of snow-covered fields. Each season brought challenges. Each season brought rewards. The people of Nebraska learned to adapt, to prepare, to persevere. The prairie taught patience. The weather taught humility. The land taught resilience. And those lessons became part of the character of the communities that grew here. Imagine standing beside a field that has been farmed for many years. The sunlight warms the earth. The wind moves gently across the open land. Generations have worked here. Generations have dreamed here. Generations have watched the sunrise just as we are watching it now. The people change, the years pass, yet the connection between land and community remains. As the sun rises higher, another thought emerges. Many of the hopes we encountered throughout our journey eventually became reality. The towns grew, the schools expanded, the railroads connected communities. Future generations enjoyed opportunities their parents and grandparents worked hard to create. The settlers could not see the full future. No generation ever can. Yet their efforts mattered, their sacrifices mattered, their dreams mattered, because the future is often built by people who will never see its final form. Imagine a child standing outside a farmhouse on a bright morning. The prairie stretches endlessly before them. The future stretches just as far. The possibilities seem limitless, and in many ways they are. Every generation inherits opportunities created by those who came before, then adds something new for those who will follow. That process continues endlessly, one generation helping the next, one sunrise leading to another. As our journey approaches its conclusion, let us pause for one final moment and simply look across the Nebraska landscape. The sky is bright now, the stars are gone. The prairie shines beneath the morning sun. The towns are waking. The roads are beginning to fill with activity. The railroad will soon carry travelers and goods across the state. The schoolhouse will welcome students. The farms will begin another day of work. Life continues, steady, purposeful, hopeful, and perhaps that is the lasting lesson of life in 1880 Nebraska. Not that the people were extraordinary, but that ordinary people working together can accomplish extraordinary things. They can build communities, create opportunities, support one another, and leave something meaningful behind. The sun now stands fully above the horizon. Its light stretches across the prairie in every direction. The long night has ended. A new day has begun. Our journey through life in 1880 Nebraska is complete. Thank you for walking these roads, for visiting these towns, for sharing these quiet moments beside prairie fields, schoolhouse desks, railroad depots, and farmhouse tables. And as the morning continues unfolding across the Great Plains, allow your thoughts to drift gently across the landscape one final time. Picture the endless sky, the rolling grasslands, the distant towns, the quiet farms, the snow-covered fields shining beneath the sun, the people who called this place home, and the simple lives they built beneath the vast Nebraska horizon. The prairie remains, the sky remains, the stories remain, carried forward from one generation to the next. The roads stretch toward distant horizons. The fields wait for another season. The towns continue their story. And beneath the bright light of a Nebraska morning, the frontier rests peacefully once again, until another journey begins. And now the sun is high above the prairie. The wind moves softly through the grass. The day has begun. And the story of life in 1880 Nebraska settles gently into memory,